When is the last time you can remember a Republican challenging somebody in the media for how they are doing their job? I can remember one. Maybe you can remember others. Well, Newt at the debates is one when he was talking about education and a number of things. But the big example, and there's really not many of these, you have to go back to, what was it? Was it 1992? Or was it 1988? Dan Rather interviewing George H.W. Bush. And Rather is asking Bush where he was during some seminal event. The implication was that Bush had cut and run, wasn't somewhere. And George Bush said, "Hey, Dan, you know, things happen. I remember when you walked off the set. When Wimbledon coverage went long and you walked off the set because you were mad the news wasn't," and Rather lost it. This is my visit. This is an interview, not about me, sir. Well, you're making it about you, Dan. I mean, look, everything's happened to people. I remember you walked off the set. You didn't do your job one day. You want to come down on me. Let me tell you what really happened, Dan. And he answered the question. That's the last big example. And Rather never forgot it. Never forgot it. I mean, I'm convinced that incident was one of the many things that led to his fake story on George W. Bush and the National Guard and all that. So anyway, these are the kind of things that Trump's doing that Republican voters have longed for and have expected the people they're donating to and voting for to do at the same time. Because to them, to Republican voters, the enemy's obvious. And the way the enemy's working is obvious. And they're not being challenged. And Trump is not taking it, is the point. And that's why I knew from the get-go that he was going to resonate with people. Be right back. Your phone calls are next. Sit tight, my friends. Back with more in a minute. 800-282-2882. Here you go. It's now official. According to thehill.com, Donald Trump takes top spot in poll conducted after John McCain remarks. So I'm going to reach around and pat myself on the back because I predicted it. And I was telling anybody who would listen, do not fall for this standard operating procedure that he's gone. You're going to work this time because he's not playing by the rules. He didn't apologize. He doubled down. Anyway, leading in a poll referenced by thehill.com after the McCain comments. Now, the George H.W. Bush thing, it was 1988. What happened was Bush had agreed to be interviewed by Rather for a general profile, and all Rather wanted to talk about was the Iran-Contra scandal. And there was something in the Iran-Contra scandal where George H.W. Bush, as vice president, had not been around us, that Rather kept talking about, and you weren't there. And finally, Bush got so exasperated, you want to talk about why I want to be president? And Bush said, it's not fair to judge my whole career by a rehash on Iran. How would you like it if I judged your career by the 7 minutes you walked off the set in New York? And that Rather walked off the set because he was mad that Wimbledon or some tennis, might have been the U.S. Open, ran over and was going to take minutes out of the CBS Evening News. And he was ticked to be relegated to backup status to a sporting event. A couple of quick sound bites here. First, let's go back. We've got this contentious interview between George H.W. Bush and Dan Rather. It was January 25th, 1988. And it was during the interview, and as I say, it's supposed to be a campaign profile, which Rather turned into a prosecution on Iran-Contra.
I don't want to be argumentative, Mr. Vice President.
You do, Dan. No, this is not a great night because I want to talk about why I want to be president, why those 41% of the people are supporting me.
And Mr. Vice President, these questions are
judge a whole career. It's not fair to judge my whole career by a rehash on Iran. How would you like it? if I judge your career by those 7 minutes when you walked off the set in New York.
Now, the interview ends there because Rather was rendered speechless for television time, a long time. And then he started mumbling and stumbling. Mr. Vice President, this interview not about me. I'm the journalist. We don't talk about me in the interview. Well, you brought it up, Dan, old buddy. I mean, you walked off the set there in New York. And that interview, by the way, that launched Bush. You know, up until that time, people like George Will were calling him a lapdog. You know, I am very fortunate that I'm blessed with a good memory. I remember this stuff like it was yesterday. Bush was being creamed. He was being accused of lying about being a conservative. He was just pretending to be Reagan's third term, but he really wasn't a conservative. And conservative media back then, which in many cases really was conservative media back then, they were calling Bush a lapdog. I mean, that was George Will put himself on the map with that comment. And he was generally considered milquetoast. This happened, and it changed everything overnight. And it took Dan Rather a long time to get. I don't think he ever did, really. And the reason he didn't is because of self-consciousness. Dan didn't get over it because he thought everybody remembered him because of that. Wherever he went, that's what he thought people thought of when they saw him, because it was an embarrassing moment in his career, and he thought that's what everybody would associate with it. So when you have that kind of self-consciousness about things, even now, you know, some network, what is it, HBO? I don't know who. Somebody's putting a movie together over Rather being fired at CBS. And who is it playing? Robert Redford, I think, is playing Rather. Yeah, it is Robert Redford's playing Rather. And this whole movie is based on the fact that Rather got railroaded and that he was right in this phony story. And this is how the left does things, like HBO is doing this movie on the Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill hearings. Well, that happened a long time ago, back in 1990. But you see, there's a whole generation of millennials who never saw it. They've been taught it. They've been taught what a bad guy Clarence Thomas is or what a heroine Anita Hill, but they haven't seen it. So it's time to make a movie. The left doesn't let their big things forgotten from generation to generation. And somebody has decided to do a movie exonerating Dan Rather on that National Guard story, too. So that's... Okay, quickly, grab audio soundbite number 23. By the way, Cate Blanchett is playing Mary Mapes in that movie. And the movie is being produced by some outfit called Mythology Entertainment. I kid you not. That's the name of the movie company. And it's based on Mary Mapes' book, Truth and Duty. So it's obviously going to be bogus.